forgive the masses of the German people for what happened, or at least try to explain some of it? Or is there something else he's trying to show? The fact that people would choose to be ignorant to these kinds of atrocities. How do we deal with these sorts of things going on around us? How would we, as a German civilian, do anything about this situation? So the point of the novel is to bring up lots of thoughts to think about. And that's what I'd like you to do. Think about all these ideas that are explored in the novel and how they can contribute to your understanding of the world and of human nature in general. Because remember, when you read novels, you are ultimately a detective/psychologist who is examining the human condition, what it means to be.
This broadcast is made possible by the Capricorn Group.
Grade 11, good morning. We start today with transport in humans, and we first have to realize, why do we need transport? If we look at transport in humans, we need a circulatory system. And I want to explain why is it important. If we look at this picture that we have now on the board, we can see that if we have a unicellular organism, and if I draw a huge unicellular organism on the board, that is a huge one, you agree? Because unicellular organisms are very, very small. Nah? I draw a huge one there. It is very easy for a single cell organism to have the nutrients, the gases that it needs diffusing into that little that little cell. But the moment when we are looking at larger organisms, it is not that easy anymore, because there are layers and layers and layers of cells. So let's see if we remember our definition. An organism starts out with a group of similar cells that will perform the same function. And we call that tissue. Then we have a group of similar or different? Different tissue that combine together to make organs. And if we have a group of organs that needs to be transport or nervous system, we will get to an organ system. You remember that? A bit of revision. This is telling us that the organization in multicellular organisms have much more layers, and that will make it a bit difficult for substances to reach the center. In order to understand that, I want us to first go to this slide and discuss this before we are going to say, to get a reason why. Transport in a unicellular organism is by, what does that DDD? Diffusion. Why can we not have diffusion in a multicellular? Because their bodies are very large. Their bodies consist out of many layers of cells, which forms tissue, which forms an organ. And there's not only one organ. The organism has a huge system. Diffusion is a slow process, which always need to move from high to low, down a concentration gradient to reach the central region of the organism will take too much time. And that brings us to the surface area to volume ratio. Surface area to volume ratio. And I want you now to work with me. If I look at the surface area to volume ratio of this little square, I want you, the three of you, please calculate the surface area and the volume of this one. The three of you can work out the surface area and the volume of this one. And please calculate the surface area and the volume of this one. Do you remember how to calculate that? Okay, let me help you. Surface area is, I want you to calculate it, please, is length times width times the number of surfaces, for the whole block. The volume is length times breadth times height. Okay, these ones are not correct. I want you to ignore this. I only want you to use the cubes. Quickly calculate that. And one. 6 surfaces, yes. There are 6 surfaces on each cube. 6 surfaces, that 6 means there are 6 surfaces. There are 6 surfaces, and there are 6 surfaces. Okay, which one is yours? This one. So what is your surface area? The surface area is 24. Yes. And the volume? The volume is 8. Okay. If we do that as a ratio, can you give me the simplified ratio? 3:1. Yes. Okay. Your surface area and your volume. Your surface area is 6 and your volume is 1. As I understand that, what is your surface area? 54 to 27, which gives us 2 to 1. So, what do we see? Surface area to volume is 6 to 1. The size of the organism increase. The surface area to volume is 3 to 1. The size of the organism increase. The surface area to volume is 2 to 1. The larger an organism, the smaller the surface area to volume ratio. So, if I am one tiny organism, it is much easier for gases to diffuse into my body and reach the center of my body. But as I am getting a bigger organism, although my surface area do increase, 6, 24, 54. My surface area to volume ratio. Do you hear those words together? Surface area to volume ratio decrease, which means there's less and less area to enter the body and to reach the middle of the body. Do you understand that?
With the all-new SuperSport Relive, we've reorganized our channels to bring you the very best documentaries, movies, and moments from all the sports you love. SuperSport 1 is coming to DSTV Compact with the best stories in all of sport. SuperSport 2 is a petrolhead's dream. And 3 gives us the Invincibles, the Unthinkables, and all things English Premier League. Over on 4, it gets bigger and badder. SuperSport 5 is golf, while 6 serves you stories and slams. 7 is for the ultimate football fan.
Scores for Nigeria!
And it's all on DSTV Access. SuperSport 8 is a knockout blow. And 9 is an African celebration.
Celebration time for Green Eagles.
SuperSport 10 gives us more of the beautiful game. 11 is the home of cricket and rugby. And 12 is a gamer's paradise. Relive it all from Ali to Zidane and more with the new SuperSport Relive, bringing you the greatest stories in sport.
Today we want to talk about the pancreas as an organ that is part of the digestive system and that plays a very important role in the digestive processes. We already know that the pancreas secretes pancreatic juices. The pancreatic juices is important to make sure that the pH is higher. Ne? The second, pancreatic juices, number 1, keeps the pH higher in the duodenum. The second thing that we know about pancreatic juices is that it contains digestive enzymes. Ne? Let's see if we can recall the 3 digestive enzymes in the pancreatic juice. Lipase, amylase, and trypsin. Okay, so if we look at the pancreas, it is a gland, and this gland is connected with the pancreatic duct to secrete. Secrete means release a useful substance. Release its useful substance into the duodenum. We can also see that the bile duct also enters into the pancreatic duct and it releases its secretion into the duodenum. Okay. Right. Now, if we look at the functions of the pancreas, we already know the one. We know that the pancreas secretes enzymes to break down starch, proteins, and fats. We also know the pancreas secretes sodium bicarbonate ions to increase the pH, to make the environment in the duodenum more alkaline. That is 2 things that we already know about the pancreas. Now, because the pancreas has secretions and it is secreting it into a duct, we say the pancreas is an exocrine gland. Pancreas is an exocrine gland. Exocrine. Exocrine means it secretes its juices into a duct and it has a useful function. But something else about the pancreas is that it is also an endocrine gland. And an endocrine gland means it releases a hormone directly into blood. Exocrine means it releases into a tube or a duct. Endocrine means a hormone directly into the blood. Can you think about that? Can you think about a picture of that? Okay, I do have a picture to help you to understand that. Exocrine means secretion into an opening, and that secretion move into a duct, right? Exocrine, release into a duct. But we also learn that the pancreas is an endocrine. It means there it releases substances, normally hormones, and it is directly taken up by the bloodstream. It did it. Just make sure. Exocrine, endocrine. Okay. So, we have the pancreas, we have the digestive enzymes of the pancreas, and it's also a buffer. A buffer means it is important to control pH. You know that buffer word? It controls the pH. Okay. Right. Now I want us to move into the ileum, which is the second part of the small intestine, the ileum. In the duodenum was D for digestion. The ileum is the part where we have absorption. So we want all these digestive parts to be absorbed into, so that it can become part of the blood and eventually become my hair, become my energy, become all the building blocks in my body. And we know that we call the end product of digestion, when everything is digested, so we have only simple amino acids, glucose, fatty acids, and glycerol. And remember, we will have some vitamin molecules, we will have some mineral ions, and a lot of water, a lot of water, because water is very important for chemical reactions to take place. It is important that all the substances dissolve in the water so that it can be absorbed through diffusion and facilitated diffusion and active transport. Okay. So why is it not osmosis, Janus? Because water is absorbed by osmosis. Now, okay, right. So let's continue. Let's see if I can get the... Now, if we go into the small intestine, we see that the small intestine, the whole small intestine, has many folds in it to increase the surface area. But in the ileum, those folds has another set of finger-like structures. And this finger-like structures, and this is a micrograph, so this is the real thing, it is not a drawing. You see finger-like structures which we call villi. Many villi and one villus. No, one villus. Okay, so this is how it looks. And to absorb all this building blocks of the matter in our body to give us energy, the glucose, the amino acids, the fatty acids, the glycerol, we need to take in a lot of fluid, and we need the villi, because the villi, finger-like projections, increase the surface area to give it a better absorption area. And now here can we see the folds, and then on the folds we see fingers. So please, the first thing is, the folds in the small intestine is not the villi. The villi is on the folds. So we can see those folds already increase the small intestine's surface area, and on top of that, finger-like extensions. Now, why do we think we need 2 layers of muscles in the small intestine? For peristalsis, circular and longitudinal muscles. And then we can take one part of that and we increase that in size. And this brings we see the red one is a blood vessel. The blood is coming in this direction. Therefore, it is red because it still contains oxygen. But as it moves into the capillary, you remember artery, arteriole, and then capillary. You remember? Artery brings the oxygenated blood, and then it's becoming finer vessels, arteriole, and then it becomes a capillary. Capillary, only one layer of cells, ne? And we call that a network. Now, something is using up the energy there. Why do you think is using energy? Because I see the oxygen is depleted. What? And what will the cells do? Respiration for active transport. Because some substances, especially the glucose and the amino acids, must move in here by active transport. If I have a high concentration inside and a low concentration outside, I want okay, let me just draw what I try to say. This is the inside of the ileum. There, I had a few amino acids, ne? But in the bloodstream, I have many amino acids already absorbed because I ate a huge steak, ne? So there's still a few in the lumen of my intestine, but there's much more in the blood. From low to high means active transport, and amino acids and glucose is absorbed by active transport, and therefore you will find a lot of which organelle in this mitochondria, because the mitochondria needs to do the respiration. Okay, well done, well said. Okay, just concentrate, you will get it. So we know finger-like to increase the surface area. But we also see blood that comes into that finger-like to absorb. What we also see is only one layer of epithelial cells to shorten the diffusion distance or the distance of absorption. There's not many layers, only one layer of epithelial cells. And on top of that, so we have folds, we have fingers, and on top of the fingers, we have microvilli that's acting like tiny finger projections to further increase the surface area. And please listen to me. This is not cilia, okay? You remember the cilia that traps the mucus in the trachea? This is not cilia. Okay, this is microvilli, so it's finger-like. Cilia was hair-like, to brush. This is not to brush. This is to increase the surface area for absorption. Okay, right. And then there's something that you actually do not know. So let me just help you to realize. Do you see there is the mitochondria for active transport? But then, do you see that yellow vessel in the middle? That is called the lacteal. Now that lacteal does not link to blood. It linked to another system that we have, the lymph system. And you remember we have lymph nodes. But this lacteal is there to absorb the glycerol and the fatty acids and the fat-soluble vitamins. The fat-soluble vitamins, the glycerol and the fatty acids that do not move into the blood. It moves into the lacteal. And that lacteal will link to the lymphatic system. And interesting, your lymphatic system is tubes. It forms a duct, and then it enters the content into your heart. And then the fatty acids, the glycerol, the fat-soluble vitamins is part of your blood system, but not here from the capillary. Only from the lacteal and the lymph system. Just one more slide, because I want you to go and look at some, that is the lymphatic system. Eh? So it's open ends, right? It's open ends, ne? And it collects all over your body. It collects extra fluids, and in your digestive system, it collects the fatty stuff. Okay, and what I want you to do for homework is I want you to just go and read in your book what is the adaptations of the villi, and I'm going to hand out page 232. How is this villi adapted to absorb, to be a good absorption area? What is the adaptations of one villus, many villi? Okay. So just to get back what we have learned today so far, the pancreas has two different functions. It acts as an endocrine gland, which means it secretes a hormone directly into the blood, endocrine. The opposite of endocrine is exocrine, which means it releases into secrete into a duct, into an opening. With something useful, the pancreas releases pancreatic juices. Now, okay, so I said that the fatty acids and the glycerol, plus fat-soluble vitamins, and sometimes even small fat droplets, is absorbed through the lacteal. Nee, okay, nee, hy sê, wel, dit is wat Nico sê. Okay, right, now, back at what is absorbed in the lacteal, fatty acids, glycerol, fat-soluble vitamins, tiny fat droplets. But the glucose and the amino acids will be absorbed into the capillaries. Glucose and amino acids into the capillaries. If I have a high concentration in the lumen and a low concentration in the blood in the capillary, I will have diffusion or facilitated diffusion. Now, let's quickly see. Can we remember? Diffusion is the movement of particles from a high concentration to a low concentration down a concentration gradient. But when I have facilitated diffusion, it means from a high concentration to a low concentration down a concentration gradient through a protein channel. I have a protein channel. That is the difference. But I also have active transport. As I have said, if I have a few molecules of glucose still